Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look at if statements, if-else statements, and comparison operators. So if statements are used to evaluate some kind of condition and then do something based on that condition or something else if that condition isn't met. Alright, so the syntax is very simple and much like just about every other programming language, at least every C syntax language. Basically we have if something is true, then we're going to do something else, then we're going to do something else. All right, so that's the basic simple syntax. All right, so let's comment that out because that's not actual code. So what I'm going to do is create a variable called ID, and I'm going to set it to 100. So we're going to first look at the equal comparison operator. So let's say equal to. So what we'll do is we'll put an if statement here, and we're going to say if ID, meaning that variable we just created, is equal to 100. All right, now this double equal sign means that we're comparing this to this. It's not an assignment operator like the single equal sign. All right, so make sure that you don't get these two confused. This is assignment. Okay, we're assigning 100 to ID. Here we're comparing 100 to ID. So if this is true, then let's just go ahead and console log, and we'll just log correct. All right, so if we go ahead and save this and run it, down here you'll see correct. Okay, if I go ahead and I change this to, let's say if ID is equal to 101 and save, then nothing happens, and that's what should happen because we didn't define any else. So if we want to define an else, we would just go like this, and we would say console.log, and let's just say incorrect, and save, and now we get incorrect because ID does not equal 101, it equals 100. If I were to change this to 101 and save, then we'll get correct. All right, I'm just gonna undo that. Now at the same time we can also do not equal to. So if we go down here, let's say not equal to, and I'm actually just going to copy this and paste it in. Now not equal is going to be an exclamation and then an equal sign. So this is basically saying if ID is not equal to 101, and ID is actually set to 100, so it is not equal to 101. So we should get correct here. So if I save, you can see the second one here, we get correct. All right. Now, this way is basically just testing the value. Okay, it's not testing the type. If I were to, let's actually change this back to 100. If I were to change this ID right here to a string of 100, and then keep this ID equals 100 and save, we get correct. All right, because it doesn't, in this case, it doesn't matter if this is a string or a number, it's still 100. Now, this isn't really the way that you want to do it most times. Most times you want to test the value and the type. It stops a lot of different errors and issues from arising. So that's what I would suggest and what most programmers would suggest. And the way that you do that is to use 3 equal signs. All right, so what we'll do is we'll copy this. Let's say equal to value and type. And then what we'll do is just add in an extra equal sign here. Now we have a string of 100, and then we're testing this 3 equals to the number 100. So if we save this and we check out the last one here, it's incorrect because this is a number, this is a string. Okay, so if we change this back to a number by removing the quotes and then we save, now we get correct. All right, so to avoid issues, I would suggest using this most of the time. All right, at least when in doubt. Now we can also do not equal to the value and the type. So if we copy this, and what we can do is just change this first one to an exclamation and then keep the double equals. So if we save that, we get incorrect. And the reason for that is because ID is in fact the right value and the right type. All right, if I were to change this back to a string, that's now not going to be equal to the 100 number. So if I save, now we get correct. All right. So just keep that in mind. You wanna by default use the triple equals, okay, in this here. So what I'm going to do now is just comment all this out because I don't want all these logs over here. And then I want to test to see if this is actually defined, this ID. So you may think that we would do something like this. So if ID, then console.log, and we'll just say no ID, or I'm sorry, we'll log the ID. So I'll put this inside of a template string, so I'll use backticks, and we'll say the ID is, and then we can put a variable like this. Okay, we already went over the template strings or template literals. Else, then let's console.log no ID. All right, so if I go ahead and save this, it's going to say the ID is 100, which is fine. But if we were to take this out of here so that there is no ID defined and saved, we're going to get an error that says ID is not defined. Even though all we're doing is testing it here, it's still going to give us this error. So the correct way to test this is to use the type of operator and test to see if it's undefined. So remember the type of. So type of, oops, if type of ID is not equal to undefined, then we want to log the ID. Else, then we'll say no ID. So let's save that. What did I do? This actually should be in quotes. All right, so now we get no ID. So if you want to test to see if something is undefined, to see if it's not there at all, then you want to use this, okay? You don't want to just say if ID because you're going to get an error. You want to test the type and see if it's equal to or not equal to undefined. You could do it either way. You could say equal to undefined and then have this here and this here, or you could do it this way. All right, let's put a comment here. We'll just say test if undefined. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just uncomment the ID up here, and we'll go ahead and comment this out. All right, so far we've gone over equal to, not equal to in both, also using the value and the type, also testing to see if something's undefined. So now let's test if something is greater than or less than. All right, so we'll say greater or less than. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this stuff is pretty easy. So what I'll do is copy this, and we'll say if ID, let's do if ID is greater than 200, we'll say, we'll just keep correct and incorrect. All right, so if I go ahead and save that, we get incorrect because obviously ID is set to 100, which is not greater than 200. If I were to change ID to 300 and save, we get correct. So very, very easy. We can also put an equal sign here because right now, even if I say 100 and save, we get incorrect. If we want to test to see if it's 100 or greater, we can do greater than or equal to. And then we save and we get correct. All right, so greater than or equal to. And then you can also do, of course, less than or equal to. I'm not going to retype it because this is very easy stuff. And I don't want to take up too much time here. All right, so let's go ahead and comment that out. Now we're going to take a look at if else. Okay. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a variable, let's call it color, and we'll set it to a string of yellow. All right, and then what I'm going to do is put an if here, and I'm going to say if color is equal to red. Actually, let's set it to red first. So we'll say if it's equal to red, then let's console.log color is red. All right, and then instead of doing just else like we did above, we can test other conditions by saying else if and then another condition. All right, so what we'll do here is we'll say if color is equal to blue, then we'll console.log color is blue. Okay. Now, if I save this, we're going to get color is red. Okay, if I change it to blue, we'll get color is blue. Now, if I change it to yellow, we get nothing. So this is where we can put in an else. All right, and we can keep doing other else if. We could say else if, you know, color is orange or whatever, but when you want to actually end it, we'll just do an else, and we'll go ahead and we'll do console log, and we'll say color is not red or blue. Okay, it needs to be something that makes sense. So we have yellow in here. We run through the tests, the else, the else if, and it doesn't match, so we get color is not red or blue. All right, so now what I want to do is take a look at logical operators. All right, so if we want to test to see, if we want to test more than one thing, we can use these operators. So let's create a name. We'll say Steve, and let's create an age. We'll say age equals 20. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll do an if statement, and we're going to say if the age is greater than 0 and, okay, double ampersand, which represents and, age is less than 12. All right, so if that's true, then we want to console.log, we want a console.log, and we're going to say name. Okay, so the name variable, actually we'll put a template string in here, make it easier. So we'll put a variable like this, name is a child. Okay, and then we'll do an else if. So we're kind of combining the logical operators and the else if here. So we'll say else if age is greater than or equal to 13 and age is less than or equal to 19. Okay, if that's the case, then we're going to say console log. We'll throw a template string in here, and we'll say, we'll say name is a teenager. Okay, and then let's do else console.log backticks. I keep doing that. Name is an adult. All right, so let's go ahead and save that, and we get Steve as an adult because we have Steve at 20 years old. If we change him to 15 and save, we get Steve as a teenager. If we change him to 4, we get Steve as a child. All right. So the ampersand, the and logical operator, is going to make sure that this and this are both true. Okay, both of them, not just one, but both. Now, if we want to make sure just one is true, then we could use or. All right, so let me actually put a comment here. So this is and, which is represented with 2 ampersamps. Okay, we also have or, which is represented with 2 pipe characters. All right, so what I'm going to do here is say if, let's see, we'll say if age is less than 16 or age is greater than, let's say, 65, then we're going to say console.log and we'll say name. We'll say this is a race registration, so cannot run in race. All right, so basically if we have a race and we have some kind of program to evaluate people that are allowed to run in it, we can't have people that are under 16 or over 65 running in the race. All right, so that would be a case where you would use or. So we'll say else console.log, and we'll say name is registered for the race. All right, so something like that. And Steve cannot run in the race because he's 4 years old, and 4-year-olds cannot run in the race. Let's go ahead and put him at, let's say, 25 and save, and now he's registered for the race. If we put him at 70, save, he might have a heart attack, so he can't run in the race. All right, so these are all the basics. Now, I do want to show you a couple shorthand ways of doing conditionals. So the ternary operator is something that is available in most programming languages. So let's say ternary operator, and this is just a very shorthand way of doing conditionals. So what we'll do here is we'll do a console.log. All right, and we're gonna go back to using the ID that we have up here, which is set to 100. So we want to basically output or console log correct if it's equal to 100 and incorrect if it's not. So we can do that by simply saying ID equals or is equal to 100, and then the ternary operator, which is a question mark. All right, so if this is true, then we want to output correct. Now the else is represented with a colon, so we want to output incorrect. All right, so this is much shorter than writing out, a full if statement and logging correct and incorrect like we did above. So let's go ahead and save that. We get incorrect. Why do we get incorrect? Let's see, console log ID is equal to 100. That's because I have it as a string. We use the triple equals, so let's save that, and now we get correct. All right, so you can see that this is much easier, and I mean, you're not going to use this in every situation, in every if statement, but for something like this, just makes it much easier. All right, another thing that I want to mention is that in JavaScript, when you do an if statement, the brackets or the curly braces are actually optional. They are recommended. I would suggest using them, but it will work without them. So let's say without, I should capitalize this. So we'll say without braces. So if we were to say if ID is equal to 100, and notice I'm not going to put the curly braces here. I'm just going to go down to the next line and indent and do a console log. Correct. And then I'll do an else. So I'll go like that and say console.log incorrect and save, and we get correct. All right, so this is possible, but again, I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest sticking with the curly braces. All right, guys, so that is it for if statements and if else statements. In the next video, we're going to jump into switches, which is another form of a conditional in JavaScript.